Beside a small town, there is a river that never quite feels finished talking. The water chuckles over stones, turns corners, and carries leaves like little boats. In the early morning, mist sits on the surface like a soft blanket you could almost tuck around your shoulders. At noon, the river sparkles as if someone spilled a bag of coins made of light. At night, the river turns into a dark mirror, and the stars look like they are learning how to swim. People say that if you float a paper lantern on the water at night, and write a wish inside, the river will keep it safe for you. They also say the river remembers the tone of your handwriting, whether you were gentle or greedy, patient or impatient. Children repeat the tale in whispers, and grandparents repeat it with a smile, as if stories are another kind of lantern. But wishes are not free in the way candy is free. If you truly want a wish to grow, you must be willing to give something real. It might be an apology you were afraid to say. It might be a share of what you have. Or it might be a promise you make to yourself and actually keep. Sometimes the trade is not painful. Sometimes it is as simple as admitting you were wrong, which can feel enormous inside your chest, even if the words are small. Sometimes the trade is effort, showing up again after embarrassment, practicing again after failure, trying again after disappointment. The river, according to the old stories, respects effort almost as much as it respects honesty. A boy named Alan sat on the wooden dock, chewing a cold bun and listening. He lived from house to house, a guest in other people's kindness, never quite belonging to any one roof. He learned early how to be polite with his footsteps, how to carry his shoes quietly, how to thank adults in a voice that sounded cheerful even when he was tired. He did not complain, because complaining felt like a luxury for people who had a bedroom that belonged to them. He wanted a home, not because a home is made of walls, but because a home is made of waiting. He wanted someone to look up when he returned and ask, simply, "You're back." He wanted a table that saved him a place without negotiation. He wanted a lamp that meant, "We kept the light on because we knew you were coming, not because we forgot to sleep." Alan bought the cheapest paper lantern he could afford. The shopkeeper was an old man with hands that looked like folded paper. The old man said, "Write carefully. The river remembers honesty more than cleverness." Alan held his brush, and his hand shook. If he wrote his wish too plainly, it felt like begging. If he wrote it too vaguely, it felt like a trick. At last he wrote a line he could stand behind, "Please help me become someone worth keeping." He set the lantern on the water. It drifted, bobbed once, twice, and then joined the small glowing line of other dreams floating downstream. Alan watched until his eyes stung. He whispered, "If you are listening, I will try to deserve you." That spring arrived earlier than usual, or maybe it only felt that way because something inside Alan softened. The town woke up with birdsong and the smell of dye vats, sharp and earthy at the same time. The weaving workshop needed an extra pair of hands. The master was quiet and exacting, but fair. Apprentices learned to measure twice and breathe once, because rushing is how thread becomes knots. Alan swept the floor until it looked like calm water. He wound spools until his arms ached in a clean, honest way. When Alan's fingers cracked from rough thread, the master pushed a small jar of salve across the table without a lecture. The master only said, "Hands are tools. Treat them kindly, and they last." On the first payday, small as it was, Alan bought a little paper packet of sweet plums for the auntie who had let him sleep on her couch. She tried to refuse, and he insisted with both hands offering the gift, because he was practicing what it meant to belong to himself. Alan thought, this must be magic. He wanted to buy another lantern immediately and ask for smooth days forever. The old man stopped him. "You already paid something for the last wish," the old man said. Alan blinked. "I didn't pay money." The old man tapped Alan's chest. "You began learning to care for yourself. That is not nothing. That is courage in a small coat." In the same town lived a girl named Suwan. She had a younger brother who coughed through the night like a small broken bird. She wrote her wish with careful words, not because the river could read medicine, but because she needed her heart to stay steady. She listed what the doctor said, what time the medicine should be taken, and what food was too heavy for a sick stomach. Alan helped her fold the lantern, his fingers clumsy at first, then gentler. He asked, "If you write this much, won't the river get tired?" Suwon smiled, but her eyes were serious. "The river can be tired," she said. "I cannot." Her brother did not heal overnight like a story with a wand. But the town found a way to borrow enough money for a better doctor in the city. Hope arrived as a road, not as a miracle. Suwon did not float another lantern for a while. She stayed beside her brother and told him stories about brave rabbits and rivers that learned to forgive. Alan listened from a distance and felt a new understanding settle inside him. A wish is not a spell that does your work while you sleep. A wish is a light that shows you where to walk next. When the rainy season came, the river rose and turned faster. Thunder rolled in like heavy barrels, and the air tasted metallic, as if the sky had coins on its tongue. Sometimes a lantern tipped and went dark. Some people shook their fists at the water and shouted that the river had lied. Some people blamed neighbors, luck, and everything except their own choices. Alan sat under the eaves and watched rain stitch the river into 1,000 wild lines. Alan noticed something important. The river did not argue back. It kept moving, as if patience were its job. He thought about Suwon on nights when her brother coughed. He thought about the master on mornings when thread snapped. He thought about his own younger self, hungry for a miracle, and he felt tenderness for that boy, not shame. Alan remembered what the old man had said about honesty. He practiced holding his temper the way you hold a kite string in wind. He did not blame the river for being a river. He did not blame the world for being large. Later, when the workshop had to change hands, apprentices packed their bundles and left for different roads. Alan stood in front of the lantern stall again. He could have written, "Let me stay." But he remembered the wish he had written as a boy. So he chose a different sentence, "Help me say goodbye with gratitude, and help me repay what I owe." When the lantern touched the water, his hands trembled. This time he was not asking for permission to be loved. He was asking for strength to be fair. On the day Alan left the town, Suwon came to the dock. She handed him a blank lantern. "No wish?" Alan asked. "Not today," she said. "Today I only want the river to remember that I came to say goodbye." They stood side by side and watched the wide water. A landscape can feel like a story laid sideways. The left bank looked like yesterday. The right bank looked like tomorrow. Their footprints, right there, were today. Before he boarded the boat, the master appeared with a wrapped bundle. Inside was a scarf woven tight enough to keep wind from sneaking through. "It is not a gift for a child," the master said. "It is a gift for a worker. Go build your name." Alan bowed, and the bow felt like a bridge. In the years between, the town held a lantern night whenever the river ran calm after rain. Children learned a song that was not about getting whatever you want. It was about folding paper carefully, about writing truthfully, about floating a light without demanding the stars to fall. Suwon's brother grew stronger in small steps, like a plant that refuses to hurry, but refuses to quit, too. And every time Suwon looked at the river, she remembered that wishes and work can be friends, not enemies. In the city, Alan learned how heavy a day could be. He carried boxes until his shoulders learned a new language of soreness. He copied numbers until ink stained his fingers and patience became a skill. He slept in rooms that smelled of rain on dust, and listened to traffic like a distant river made of metal and hurry. He missed the sound of water that did not pretend to be important. On hard nights, he opened his pack and looked at the blank lantern. He imagined writing 100 complaints. He imagined writing 100 demands. Instead he practiced breathing slowly, like someone setting a lantern down without splashing. He kept the blank lantern in his pack like a quiet friend. One evening, storm clouds stacked themselves like gray blankets. Alan saw an elderly woman struggling with her umbrella. He lifted his own small shelter and walked beside her until she reached her door. She asked, "What do you want in return?" The word jumped out before he thought, "Nothing." Then he froze, surprised at himself. He realized kindness did not always have to be a trade. Sometimes it could be a gift with no receipt. Years later, Alan returned to the town. The lantern stall was still there, but the old man was gone. A younger seller repeated the same words, like a song passed down, "The river keeps what you mean, not only what you write." Alan set a lantern on the water. Inside, he wrote only 2 words, "Thank you." Far down the bank, Suwan taught children how to fold paper without tearing it. A little boy asked, "If I write my wish, will it come true?" Suwan knelt to his height. "A wish helps you see what you are willing to work for," she said. The river does not do your homework. It mirrors your courage. That night, many lanterns floated, tiny suns on dark silk. Alan thought about magic. Real magic might not be a voice that grants everything for nothing. Real magic might be softer. It might be practice. It might be kindness with boundaries. It might be showing up again after you fail. If you are young and listening to this story, here is something you can keep: the world will not always say yes on the day you ask. But you can still be the kind of person who prepares, who shares, and who tells the truth to yourself. You can learn to apologize without vanishing inside shame. You can learn to try again without pretending the first try did not hurt. You can learn to help someone without turning yourself into a doormat, because kindness is strongest when it knows where it ends. A paper lantern cannot walk your road for you. It can only remind you that even in darkness, you are allowed to light something on purpose. And when you light it, do not only look at the sky. Look at your hands, too. They are small, but they are yours. And that is enough to begin. So go gently, and go bravely. Let your wishes be honest. Let your effort be steady. And if you ever stand by a river at night, remember Alan and Suwan and the old shopkeeper with paper hands. Sometimes the brightest light is not the one that answers instantly. Sometimes it is the one that keeps you company while you learn how to grow.